become much more visible in upcoming municipal elections valley-wide. The Gay and Lesbian Alliance of the Desert met tonight to plan strategy, and KESQ's John Hertz has a look at what to expect.
If the gay and lesbian community has anything to do with it, they'll make a difference in the local 92 vote. In the past, many gays feel they've been given lip service every 4 years, and then once elections are over, council members turn their backs on them. In Palm Springs, so far it's incumbent Sonny Bono versus Councilman Tuck Broik for mayor. Councilman Earl Neal won't seek re-election, so 2 seats are open. It's no secret the gays currently like 2 relatively new council members.
Palm Springs especially has really closed their ears to us. With the few exceptions like Dana Hodges and Chuck Morosky, the majority of council has just said that they're not interested in listening to us anymore.
Bono says candidates need to look at the big picture, at Palm Springs as a whole and not at special interest groups. However, every issue should be looked at, including gay rights.
If there are needs that are not covered, then they should be covered, and I would dedicate myself to that. But again, I just don't think that, I think there would be a problem if you start fractionalizing.
We want non-discrimination legislation in every city in the valley. That's automatic. It has to happen. We want people that will listen to us, that will sit down, talk to us with an open mind and be willing to hear what we have to say. And we certainly don't have that now.
Broik declined comment on the gay issue, saying he needed to give it some thought before going public.
Although it's still very early in the game, it's a safe bet that by the time the candidates start their full campaign swing, they'll have something to say one way or the other regarding the gay issues. If not, they just might find themselves outside of these doors come the April election. In Palm Springs, John Hertz, KESQ TV News.
Well, the city of Coachella may see
our enemies have been doing for a number of years quite successfully. Now we're saying it's time that we start to do those same things.
And aren't we the second largest minority?
Yes, after seniors, gays are the second largest minority here in the valley and are non-represented in elected positions throughout the valley.
We want to talk about that, want to talk about AB101 and the anti-discrimination ordinance. Before we do that, in terms of the anti-discrimination ordinance, that was passed by Cathedral City.
Yes.
What changes have you seen as a result of that? How has that impacted gay life?
There is no specific things where impact is going to be felt. It makes a statement, and that's all Palm Springs was asked to do, is make a statement that says discrimination is not allowed in our city. There have been 2 instances in Cathedral City where complaints have come up about discrimination issues, both of which were able to be settled in the city attorney's office just through quiet negotiations. But probably those things would not have been able to happen had the legislation not been there.
Let me back up for a moment, if I may. AB101, which is before the state legislature, and would extend minority status to gays. There are people that would say, well, wait a minute, we have a Bill of Rights, a Constitution, and your rights are already covered under the Bill of Rights. Why then is this necessary?
Mm-hmm. Well, it is covered except for sexual orientation, and AB 101 specifically is to include sexual orientation. This is probably one of the most important issues in California right now, especially for the gay community. The fundamentalists are fighting very hard against this. They claim that we're not a legitimate minority. They say there's only less than 1%. Of course, this is way off target. I think they say that there's no law needed because we're not a legitimate minority. But we figure that we're at least 10%. That's the standard figure in the population.
Well, in addition to the dispute over numbers, there's also a dispute on their part, I believe, that what they are saying is behavior does not justify creating a special minority status. It's not the same as being black or being Latino. And again, how do we justify this? And if we do, where do we draw the line? Do we extend the same opportunities to different behavioral groups?
If behavior is by choice, and I don't believe there is any gay or lesbian person out there that has chosen to be gay or lesbian. This is something that is determined, you know, at birth and early on. I certainly didn't ask to be gay so that I could be ostracized in my church and thrown out, that I would lose my job, that in some areas of the country I probably couldn't rent an apartment. You know, we don't choose those things. You know, those things happen because we're gay. And as I said, that was determined years and years and years ago.
Where does AB 101 stand from your standpoint? Does it look like it will pass at this point? How much more of a fight will go on in the state legislature?
Oh, it'll be a big fight to get to the governor's desk. It's currently in the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, which I believe in a week and a half will be voting that out to go to the full Assembly floor. That vote looks good, and it then goes to the state Senate. If things go as scheduled, it will hit the governor's desk in late September, early October, and that's really where the battle will take place.
Governor Wilson has indicated that he will sign it if it passes.
All right. If AB 101 does pass, then why an additional ordinance in local areas, in Palm Springs and other cities?
You said it, if AB 101 passes, and we're not sure that's going to take place. If the individual cities had been taking these steps all along, AB 101 wouldn't have been necessary. But we're not going to sit on our hands and wait for one particular level of government to take care of something. We have to go on all different levels to reach the same status that everyone else has.
Is politically, and particularly in the Valley, is this the key item on your political agenda?
It is the first and foremost right now, yes. There are other things that we would like to see as time goes on. Discrimination legislation for people with HIV infection, domestic partnership legislation down the road at some point. There are several things on our agenda, but they're in different stages and where we want to bring them up.
And we feel that AB 101 is going to pave the way for more AIDS funding down the road. If it fails, there'll be less funding. If it wins, there'll be more funding.
All right, more funding for AIDS. And again, you get resistance on this point from people that say, wait a second, AIDS proportionately has had far more funding than heart disease, than cancer, than other diseases. Isn't this being exaggerated? And I want to get your response to that.
Not at all. When Legionnaire's disease hit in the Ford administration, it immediately was a national emergency. We have to find out what this is. And within just a few months, they had all the answers they needed, but they poured a tremendous amount of money into it right away because it happened to delegates to an American Legion conference. Had the government taken those same steps when AIDS first appeared, we probably would have had a cure by now. But they sat on their hands and waited because it was only affecting gay people at that time. And now we're looking at a monumental epidemic across the world because our government wouldn't move quick enough.
And they say that Reagan never mentioned the word AIDS during his time in office. Is that?
How has the entire AIDS issue affected the relationship between the gay community and between non-gays who are sympathetic with gay political causes in general?
Well, it's brought them closer together. Made a lot, strengthened the willingness to talk to each other and to go out and join each other in different battles that are going on. And gay people now joining projects with heterosexuals that probably never would have happened before either.
In terms of the Coachella Valley's response to treatment, research, all the items related to AIDS, how would you evaluate it at this point?
Oh, I think it's been excellent. Really phenomenal for the size of the community that we have at the outpouring that they've given to the Desert AIDS Project and Desert Community Outreach.
All right, getting back to local political issues for just a moment. Will you be running, is it a question of opposing people or running alternatives at this point?
A little bit of both. We're not ready to identify the candidates that we will be supporting. We're discussing things with several people. If at some point we decide to endorse, then of course we'll be out there knocking on doors, making the phone calls, giving money. But we also want to highlight the voting records of the incumbents and why we don't feel they should be reelected.
All right. And those that you feel should not be elected would include, if I hear you correctly, Tuck Broik?
Without question. Tuck Broik needs to be removed from office.
Okay. Mayor Bono?
We still have a year to really to look at sending. It's very up in the air right now. I mean, if the election was tomorrow, I'd say let's find somebody else. But it's not, and I'm certainly willing to keep an open mind on Mayor Bono.
And what about in other municipalities, Bob Hillary in Cathedral City?
Bob is a good man, and I think he means well and wants to do good things. I think there needs to be more talking and more communication.
All right. Greg, you met recently with Carol Engelhardt, City Council person with Cathedral City. What was the gist of the discussion? We
have agreed to disagree.
I got to get you to elaborate
any
on
number of issues.
All right.
I went thinking it was a half-hour lunch, and 2.5 hours later we left the restaurant. We talked about gay rights, we talked about gay pride, we talked about pornography, talked about a lot of things, and we don't agree on hardly anything, other than possibly redevelopment within the city limits. She has a very strong set of beliefs that have come from her church and her maturation process. She is coming to speak to GLAAD in a community forum on June 13th that she'll be addressing the gay community for the first time she's ever done that.
Now, is she the first politician to do so in the Valley?
Dana Hodges came last month and had a very good reception, very positive, was able to provide a lot of insight on a lot of things going on in Palm Springs. This will be the first Cathedral City elected official in a long time, and certainly the first right-wing fundamentalist I mean, who describes herself as such, that has been willing to come and talk to us.
When you say you agree to disagree, that must mean that there's some conciliatory movement there, or some basis for discussion in the future.
There is, in what it relates to Cathedral City, and where we both would like to see the city go. I mean, I've lived in Cathedral City ever since I moved here to the Valley, so I have some ties there personally. But when it comes to gay issues, AIDS issues, we're very far apart.
All right. I want to pick up on a couple of issues relating to Cathedral City, particularly the situation with sex shops, which I know you discussed with Carol, adult bookstores, and also certainly want to talk about GLAAD and what your organizational goals are. We're talking with Greg Pettis, who is president of GLAAD, Gay and Lesbian Alliance of the Desert, also Cal Willis, who is on the board of directors of GLAAD, and I'm Paul Mitchell. You're tuned to At Issue. Greg Pettis, when we broke, we were talking about your meeting with Carol Engelhardt of the Cathedral City Council, and as I understand it, one of the topics of discussion, the proposed adult bookstore / sex shop, I don't know how we're titling it now, but at any rate, what developed from that conversation? Is GLAAD taking a specific stand on this issue?
GLAAD is not taking a stand because we don't view it as a gay-related issue. Certainly, as a libertarian type thing, any legitimate business owner should be allowed to run his business as he sees fit and sell whatever product he feels is going to retrieve a nice profit, so long as it's legal. And selling adult-oriented magazines and videotapes is legal. So he should be allowed to make it or not based on the volume of business he's allowed to do. And that holds true whether it's a bookstore or a nightclub or a restaurant or anyone else.
Well then, so that is not an issue as far as GLAAD is concerned. There is this perception out in the community that somehow the gay community is opposing Carol Engelhardt on this matter, Bob Hillary on this matter, and you're saying that that's not the situation.
No, where we begin to get worried and concerned is when we go to city council meetings and person after person gets up to testify and they start to talk about the bookstore and then they move it to queers, perverts, and homosexuals, and then they move it over to gamblers, and they lump all these things that in their own moral judgment is evil all together, and it paints with a wide brush everything that they don't like, and then we become involved because they're starting to single us out as some group of people that they would like to brush away.
In terms of political candidates, are we moving toward, in terms of the gay community, in terms of one-issue candidates, in that If you are acceptable as a politician on gay issues, then you're electable. You could be perfectly awful on everything else. But if you're okay, whatever that means, on gay issues, the gay community will support you. Is that the situation?
Not at all. We're certainly going to look at gay issues as important to us, but we're going to look at every other issue that's going on. We've chosen to live in Palm Springs or Cathedral City or Rancho Mirage, so we want everything in that city to go well and to prosper. So, for instance, in Cathedral City, we're concerned about the fire tax that's going to be levied to try and get the budget back in line. We're concerned about the cuts that were made. We're concerned about the raceway and the threat to the environment that that's going to have. We're concerned about all those issues because we live there. But because we live there, we also want the respect that we feel we deserve as individuals, and that includes our sexual orientation.
All right, if we may, turn our attention to your organization, GLAD, Gay and Lesbian Alliance of the Desert. You have been an organization for how long?
A year now.
All right, why did you feel it was necessary to form GLAD?
I think Cal would be.
Well, we talked about this a couple of years ago. Greg and I started talking, and because there's a need in the community. Most large cities have a gay-lesbian center, and it took several years of talking and developing, so now we're 1 year old. GLAD is a building, it's a location, it's people, it's program, it's services, and we're, I think, ahead of what we thought would happen in 1 year.
Why the distinction between gay and lesbian in the title? Does that mean there are different agendas involved?
Well, we did talk about that. We thought it'd be good if we could just say gay, but lesbians apparently prefer to use the term lesbian and to distinguish from gay men.
How would you describe it? Is it a social center, educational, what?
Mutual support, I think, is one of the major things. We have social things go on. We teach Western dancing on Friday night. We have movie night on Monday night. We have a parents and friends of lesbians and gay. That's parents who have gay children. That's under our umbrella. In fact, I attended a meeting last Sunday up in Idlewild. It was in the Idlewild paper that there would be a meeting at PFLAG. And the people conducting the meeting were worried about vandalism, but luckily there was none. But we had 25 people show up, the parents who are concerned about their children. So those are the kinds of organizations that we have.
Well, tell us about vandalism and violence. What sort of reaction has GLAD received in the community?
We did have a little bit of vandalism when we first opened, and then subsequently we had a second minor episode. We get lectures on the telephone a lot, sermons. We get quite a bit of that. But the gay community is used to violence. I think a lot of people have been murdered and beaten, and even here in the valley. I don't know about murder, but I know we've had beatings in the valley here, and we get you know, things like broken windshields and that sort of thing.
Was the organization also started, I think you mentioned this to me when we were talking off camera, as an alternative to other social opportunities? That gays, in effect, did not have that many places to meet. There's the bar scene, bathhouses, and now you felt that it was necessary to start an alternative.
Right. We wanted a place that was alcohol-free, where people could come just have, you know, have a Coke and, you know, a snack or something, and just
smoke-free,
and talk, and smoke-free.
All right.
And just talk and feel safe. Someplace that didn't have any kind of threatening environment to it.
What type of reception in the gay community to GLAD?
Oh, it's been wonderful. It's been wonderful. A lot of support, participation in our activities and fundraising, and very, very positive.
Volunteer organization?
Yes, completely. There's no paid staff at all.
All right. What sort of services does GLAD provide?
Well, we do a lot in providing as an umbrella support network for groups. We have, as Cal was saying, different groups that meet there. The parents group, we have a gay Latino group that meets, different rap groups that go on. We have a youth group, 17 to 22, young people that have discovered that they're gay and want to meet and talk about it amongst themselves. If you're over 22, you're not allowed in that meeting, other than the facilitators, who are both education professionals, out of the Hemet School District, in fact, not even out of Palm Springs, that drive in to help facilitate that. We have counselors that are available. With the Desert AIDS Project, we provide once a quarter high-risk education on HIV and its transmission, mainly to the Latino population and the youth population, those that are highest risk right now for AIDS transmission. We've started to develop some PSAs, public service announcements for the radio and television station. In fact, KSQ's been running one that Bob Hope did for us on gay violence. So we're starting to do some of those kinds of things that will outreach into the greater community.
I think our helpline, too, is an important service that we do. People who need help can call the 321-8600 number. That can be for counseling, it can be for information, or crisis.
And now, is that a 24-hour service?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have the volunteers for 24 hours. Yeah.
It's open in the evenings that we have people there, and then there's an answering machine on the rest of the time. Then we get back to people within 24 hours if they have a message.
In terms of AIDS education, your assessment so far, is it being heard? Is the education having an effect?
It's being heard in the gay community, and the studies that have been done in Los Angeles and San Francisco hold to that the rate of transmission among gay men is decreasing rapidly. It's in the heterosexual community and the people of color community that we're finding that we haven't succeeded in getting the education out to, or that it hasn't been received because of different cultural or social barriers. And we have to redouble our efforts into those areas.
In terms of the future of GLAAD, 5-10 years from now, you're in your infancy, relatively. What would you like to see happen?
Well, we certainly anticipate getting bigger, owning our own building instead of renting, that we can provide 24-hour helpline services, that we would be able to have a full education department. Down the road, we see a problem with runaways. The problem already exists, and there's no one there to handle it. And it's how we can develop and grow in order to take care of that. Kids that are running away from their homes in Los Angeles or whatever and coming to Palm Springs because of the glamour of the name and everything. And there's no social service organization set up to deal with that. That problem will get bigger as it goes on.
Now, you know, when you say that, the red flag goes up with a lot of people, gays, youth groups, imposing the gay lifestyle on children, on young people, and I want to get your response to that.
Sure, well, it's ridiculous, but because of that stereotype that's out there, we've gone to great lengths that, like with our youth group now, we're using a heterosexual married couple to facilitate that. We're not putting our board of directors or any of our volunteers in a position where they can be accused of anything like that. We don't want that. We're there to help the kids. And if they feel that they're gay and need someone to talk to, we make that available. If they come to terms with their sexuality and find that GLAAD is not what they need, that's wonderful, and they can go on and do something else with their lives. We're there to help, that's all.
Cal, I think you told me you've been in the Valley for 10 years? 10 years or so. A marked difference in gay life in 10 years in terms of acceptance in the overall community?
Yes. When I first came down here, the Desert Sun wouldn't even print the word. You know, they ignored it totally, like we didn't exist. And now the Desert Sun is, of course, very open. They report our events. We get a lot of coverage. In fact, the Desert Sun has been helpful in getting us new members. So things like that seem like today. I mean, and Greg's been on television several times this week already. So we're getting a lot of, I think, media coverage, definitely.
Another one of your concerns is Life Lobby, and we have just a couple of minutes left. Tell us about that.
Okay, LIFE stands for Lobby for Individual Freedom and Equality. That's a very important lobby group that's in Sacramento. They are responsible for getting a lot of AIDS legislation through the Sacramento. And the current battle is where they're focusing right now on AB101. The lobbyist up there is taking a lot of abuse. She's just undergoing a great deal of lies and abuse from the fundamentalists. But we're going to persevere, and she's in there fighting and doing a great job. But LIFE is something that we're working closely with as far as GLAAD and the local gay community.
All right. You offer a lot of services with GLAD. Costs a lot of money. How do you raise the money?
It's all donations right now. We've applied for no city or state grants. It's just through the kindness of people in the community that have allowed us to maintain the operation. We are sponsoring this year's annual Gay Pride Festival that'll take place over the 4th of July weekend. That costs a lot of money up front. Hopefully we'll have plenty of return after that.
That'll be in Palm Springs?
Be in Cathedral City at the Auto Park.
Okay. We are speaking with Greg Pettis. Greg is the president of GLAD, Gay and Lesbian Alliance of the Desert. Also joining us, Cal Willis, who is on the board of directors of GLAD. We have just a moment left. Gentlemen, if people are interested in GLAD's work, your services, how do they approach you?
They can pick up the telephone and call us at 321-8600 and get one of us that are there, or certainly leave a message on the tape and we'll get back with them.
And look for us at Gay Pride in July 6th and 7th.
All right, you got that plug in, Cal. All right, and Greg Pettis, thank you both. I'm
Thank
Paul
you.
Mitchell, and this is At Issue.